Okay, hello everyone. This is Sam Zakarian again with the Chicago Real Estate School. Uh, this session is going to be chapter 5, deals with liens. Now, if you see the word lien anywhere, anytime on any exam, what we're talking about, it's involving money borrowed or money owed. It could be a mortgage lien, it could be a tax lien. So starting off on page 57 of your textbook, we're using the 10th edition. And just to remind you again, anytime I tell you to put an X by something, please do. Those are very important. If I tell you to highlight or underline something, please do that as well. So on page 57, the very first two paragraphs, I like you to highlight and even put an X by them. It says the first paragraph, a lien is a monetary charge or claim against property made to enforce a payment of money. Whenever anyone borrows money, like to buy a property or anything else, they make them sign. They put a lien on that property to ensure that they get the payment. Now, the second paragraph, the lien only represents a interest in the property, does not constitute actual ownership. A lien can lessen the value of the property, or it could obstruct the transfer of property, but it doesn't necessarily prevent the transfer. But most people, when they buy property, they want to make sure there aren't any liens attached to it. Now, under different types of liens, the next 6 bullets, I'd like you to highlight, put an X by each one of these. Let me go over these with you. The first one is called a voluntary lien. A voluntary lien is a lien that you created yourself. An example of a voluntary lien is a mortgage lien. So when you borrow money to buy a piece of property, you voluntarily give the lender a right to take that property away from you if you fail to pay back that loan anytime in the future. So a mortgage is a voluntary lien. The next bullet is a involuntary lien. A involuntary lien is a lien that you did not want on your property, but was placed on your property. An example of an involuntary lien, well, it could be a lawsuit. Property taxes are involuntary. IRS are involuntary as well. Now, the next one they have in there is called statutory lien. A statutory lien is created by state statute, by state law. Now, for example, a mechanics lien, which is a contractor's lien, that is a statutory lien. Same thing with property taxes. Property taxes are involuntary and they happen to be statutory. The next one there is called equitable. Equitable means it's equal, it's fair. Usually, let me adjust this. Usually, this is what's rendered by a judge, like in a lawsuit. That would be equitable. That would be fair. Now, the next one is called a general lien. A general lien is a lien that attaches all of the defendant's property, both real and personal. A judgment is a involuntary lien. IRS is also a general lien. Not, I said involuntary. I meant to say general. And then the next one is called a specific lien. A specific lien is a lien that only attaches one particular property. Um, Property taxes are specific, meaning, let's say you own 10 properties and you did not pay your property taxes on one of them. They're going to file a specific lien just on the one you didn't pay your taxes on. So property taxes happen to be involuntary, they are statutory, and they are specific as well. Mechanics liens, excuse me, are specific as well too. So let's go on to page 52. 52, yes. Now, about the third paragraph down, priority of liens. I want you to highlight, put an X by that. Liens are going to be paid in the order which they are filed or recorded. First in line is first in right. Let me give you an example. Let me go to my board right now and I show you. Coming up right now. Okay. So let me write this down. Priority of liens. Priority of liens. So again, liens are paid according to when they are filed or recorded. Liens are paid. I want to write this down. You should write this down too. Liens are paid. Want to know this. According to when they are filed and recorded. They are filed and recorded. Explain that in just a moment. So again, liens are going to be paid according to which they are filed or recorded. By the way, when I think I mentioned it earlier, I mentioned it again. If I write down anything on this chalkboard, it's important for you to copy it. Either write it down yourself, or at least take a screenshot. Writing it down, I think, is more effective. You tend to remember more of it. So again, liens are paid according to when they are filed or recorded, which means this. First in line means first in right. I'll give you an example in just a minute. Now, let's say I have a property and I have a first mortgage lien on it. And let's say this lien is only $50,000. And this was recorded 25 years ago. On the same property, because I got a lot of equity in this property, I don't want to touch that first mortgage, but I want to get, because I have such good rate, I want to get a second mortgage on it. And say this second mortgage is going to be $250,000. But this was recorded 2 years ago. Now, on the same property, I need some more money, so I got a third mortgage, all on the same property. And this one is for $95,000. And that was recorded 6 months ago. It doesn't matter what the amounts are. If I defaulted on this mortgage, on this property of mine, my first mortgage is going to get paid first. If there's any money left over, go to second mortgage. Chances are they won't recover the whole thing. If I have a third mortgage, well, they'd probably be out of luck. If I have a fourth, fifth, sixth, 12th mortgage, they're all out of luck. So again, priority of liens. Liens are going to be paid in the order which they are filed or recorded. As long as we understand that, that's important. I need to give you the exemptions to that, or exceptions. There are 3 exceptions. So I do want you to remember, liens are going to be paid in the order which they are filed or recorded. There are 3 exceptions to that. The exceptions are, number 1, property taxes. Property taxes will always be first. You have a mortgage recorded 25 years ago. You did not pay your property taxes this year. Your property taxes jump ahead of everything else. Number 2, they call them special assessments. Now, I'm not talking about special assessments like in a condo when they put in new windows or replace the roof or anything else like that. These are special assessments imposed by the city or the village. They put in a new curb, a new sewer, or a new sidewalk. That's a one-time charge. Property taxes are levied every single year. Special assessments is a one-time charge. These are both by the government. Number 3, it's called a mechanics lien. Mechanics lien is a contractor's lien. You hire a contractor to do some work on your property, and you don't pay them, they're going to file a mechanics lien on that property, which can force the sale of your property. So, again, I just want to repeat it. Priority of liens. Liens are going to be paid in the order which they are filed and recorded. First in right is first in line is first in right. The 3 exceptions are property taxes will always be first, jump ahead of everything else. Special assessments will be second. Mechanics lien, then any of the mortgages that are recorded in the order which they are recorded. Now, on page 52, the last paragraph, highlight, put an X by that, ad valorem. Ad valorem is Latin for according to value. Property is going to be taxed at an ad valorem basis, according to value. I'm going to give you a couple examples of that in just a moment. Now, the reason why everyone pays taxes, it's on top of page 53, the bullets over there. The reason why we have to pay taxes to run our government, to run our schools, to run our streets and sanitation, to run our police, our fire department, to run our libraries, our universities. That's why we pay taxes. Now, not everyone pays taxes. There are people that are exempt, that second section. Of course, governments do not pay taxes. Charitable organizations, religious institutions do not pay taxes. Educational universities do not pay taxes. Everyone else does pay taxes. Now, let's go on to page 54. It's about a quarter of the way down, that paragraph where it says assessments. You got to highlight, put an X by that. Now it says real estate is valued for tax purposes by county or township assessors or appraisers. This official valuation process is called assessments. Now, taxes have to be distributed equally among all the property owners in the area. Now, let's go to the very last line here on page 54, where it says validity of taxes. That's going to continue on the next page on 55. So that first paragraph, you got highlight, put an X by that one. It says real estate taxes must be valued to be enforceable. Must be valid to be enforceable. That means they must be levied properly, must be used for legal purpose, and must be applied equitably to all properties. Real taxes that remain delinquent for a certain number of time can be collected through various means. Now, highlight, put X by this very next paragraph. Annual creation of tax liens. General real estate taxes are levied annually for the calendar year and become a prior first lien superior to all other liens on January 1st of that tax year. However, they're not due and payable to the following year. So let me tell you what happened. On January 1st of this year, there was a lien placed on every single property in the entire state of Illinois, even though they're not due and payable until next year. You didn't even buy the property, there was a lien placed on that property. Now, payment of tax bills. Highlight, put an X by that paragraph. In all Illinois counties except for Cook County, which is not on the state exam, property taxes are due in 2 equal installments, one half by June 1st, the other half by September 1st of the following year. There are 102 counties in the state of Illinois. Out of the 102 counties, 101 of the counties, property taxes are due in 2 equal installments. Again, one half by June 1st, the other half by September 1st of the following year. Cook County is not on the state exam. So I know if you own property, some of you own property here in Cook County, I do know when your property taxes come out. I just want you to ignore that because that will not be on the state exam. Now, enforcement of tax liens. So if someone did not, you can highlight that little paragraph. You can put an X by number 1, 2, and 3. If someone have not paid their property taxes, then the property could be sold in one of three ways. Number one, you have the annual tax sale. So if you didn't pay your property taxes on time, they have the annual tax sale. Now, I didn't pay my property taxes, and let's say that you bought my property for the back taxes. Well, you don't really own that property yet because every taxpayer in Illinois, even if they're behind, they have up to 2.5 years from the time they didn't pay to redeem their property taxes. So I didn't pay my property taxes when the taxes were due. You bought my property taxes. I still have 2.5 years from the time I did not pay to redeem the taxes. I had to pay you back plus interest as well. Now, let's say it's been 6 months and I did not pay my taxes and no one else bought my taxes. Then we have a forfeiture sale. And this is where they publish it in a paper, or you could go down to the county treasurer and get a copy for, small fee of all the properties that are delinquent. Now, again, I'm 6 months behind and you bought my property taxes at the forfeiture sale. I still have a total of 2.5 years from the time I was behind to redeem my property taxes. Now, number three, the 2.5 years have been up. I did not pay my taxes in 2.5 years. No one else bought my property taxes. Now we have a scavenger sale. Now, at the scavenger sale, anyone can buy that property and they're not responsible for any back taxes. Now, usually at the scavenger sale, the starting bid is more likely about $1. It goes to the highest bidder. Here's the problem. The county's losing money. I did not pay my taxes. No one else paid my taxes. The county's losing money. So that's why they have the scavenger sale. They're not responsible for back taxes. And now most people probably buy for around $20 or more, depending on the value of the property. Now, one thing, some people are interested in buying these properties at the scavenger sale. One thing they got to look out for. Sometimes there's a house and it's actually been slated to be condemned by the city. And if you wind up buying that house for the back taxes, city later on comes down and tears on that property, you will get a bill anywhere from 40,000 to 50,000 for the demolition costs. So you got to make sure you do a search record, make sure that property's not under condemnation orders by the village or the city. Now, I want to do a couple tax problems with you. Now, chances of seeing these on the state exam, it's going to be 100%. So I'm going to clear my board up again. I'm going to get a new slate. And I want to do a couple tax problems. These are going to be very similar to what you should see on a state exam. So the first one, I have it written down here. A property has a current market value. And I'm going to explain these all to you, but write down this problem and I want you to work these problems when I solve them. Property has a current market value of $380,000. Now, property is never going to be taxed at the full market value. They're always taxed at a fraction of the market value, which is called the assessed value. So I'm going to put down the assessed value percentage. In this case, I'm going to put a 30%. It's 30% assessed value. Let me make that a little bit clearer. I'm sorry about that. There we go. Now, then we have something called the equalization factor. Now, not all states have that, but Illinois, and I'm going to explain this to you in a moment. Equalization factor. And let's say the equalization factor is going to be 1.4. I'm going to explain what all this is in a little bit. And then we have your taxes. And the taxes in this case that I made up, it's going to be $4 for every $100 of value. $4 for every $100 of value. Now, let's solve this problem. So the property has a current market value of $380,000. Now, properties never taxed at the full market value. They're always taxed at a fraction of the market value. In this case, it's 30%. On a state exam, it could be 20%, 35%, 38%, 25%. In this case, it's 30%. So I need to multiply this by 30%, which will give me a assessed value of $114,000. Now we have an equalization factor. Now, not all states have an equalization factor. If you get this problem on the state portion, you will see the equalization factor. If it shows up on the national part of the test, you will not see it. So we're going to skip this step, but I'm using it now because a good chance you will see it. So the equalization factor is 1.4. Now, what is the equalization factor? It's what makes property equal throughout the entire state of Illinois. Now, let's say you own 10 acres of land in Lake Forest, for example, Lake Forest suburb. 10 acres of land in Lake Forest suburb is going to be worth a lot more money than 10 acres of land somewhere in downstate Illinois, where farmers growing some crops like some wheat or corn or something like that. So to make property equal, that we have an equalization factor. Now, in this case, it happens to be 1.4. On a state exam, it could be 2.2, 1.8, 1.2, 1.35. In this case, it happens to be 1.4, which if I multiply the assessed value of 114,000 by 1.4, that's going to give me $159,000. The 159,000 is called the equalized assessed value. Now we have our taxes. Now, our taxes are usually based on per $100. Occasionally, I've seen it at 1,000, but mostly at 100. Now, in this case, it's $4 for every $100 of value. It could be $3.50 per 100. It could be $5.25. $5.25 per 100. I'm just making up these numbers, but I just want you, it's not always $4. So now I need to multiply 159,000 by $4, which is going to give me 638,400. Now, what I do with that, I divide this by 100, and the taxes come out to, just down a little bit, give myself some room. Doesn't work. Okay. The taxes are going to equal $6,384 for the year. $6,384 for the year. Now, that's what the taxes are for the year. But you have to be careful on a state exam. That's the taxes, what they are for the year. But pay attention when they ask the question. They might ask for the monthly taxes. They might ask for the first installment. Since taxes are, they ask for the first installment. Since taxes are paid in 2 equal installments, then you divide 66384 by 2, and the taxes come out to $3,192. And that's for the first installment, okay? That's the first installment. The second installment will be the exact same amount. Now, that's if they ask for the first installment. If they ask for the monthly taxes, then you take $6,384, you divide it by 12 months, which comes out to $532 per month. So please be careful, pay attention to what they're asking for. So that's how you solve the property taxes. Now, I'm going to do another tax problem that's similar to this. But it's going to be a little bit different. I want to explain that to you. So again, let me because there's a chance that you might get at least one of these, but many people will get both of these on a state exam. So let me give you the example of the other one. So I'm going to give a new clean slate over here. And let me give you another problem. Okay. A property has the current market value of $425,000. It's being assessed at 35%. Have an equalization factor in this case happens to be 1.3, and the taxes is 38 mils. Now I want to explain mils to you because outside of the state exam, you probably won't see the word mil. So it's used in accounting today, the old form of money. So let me just go give you an example of what a mil is, and then I'll be able to solve this problem for you. Just be familiar with this. So 1 mil equals 1/1000 of a dollar, 1/1000 of a dollar. 10 mils equal 1 penny. 100 mils equals 10 cents. And 1,000 mils will equal a dollar. So any mil problem you get, whatever it is, all you have to do is you put a decimal point at the end and you move it 3 places to the left. For example, 10 mils. See, I'm over here, 10 mils. Put a decimal point there. You move it 3 places to the left. 1, 2. I have to bring another 0 to get to the third place. 3 decimal points. So it becomes 0.1 or a 0.010. 1,000 mils. Decimal point, 1, 2, 3. Comes $1. So before I solve this problem, just want to give you an idea. If I took 1,750 mils, and I ask you, how much money would that be? What you do is put a decimal point 3 places over. 1, 2, 3. Becomes $1.75. Any mil problem, okay? So let's solve this problem. So the property has a current market value of $425,000. Again, property's never taxed at the full market value. They're always taxed at a fraction. In this case, the assessed value is 35%. Multiplied by 35%. That gives me $148,750. That is called the assessed value. Now we have an equalization factor of 1.3. So I need to take this figure, multiply it by 1.3. Remember, that's what makes property equal throughout the entire state of Illinois, which will give me an equalized assessed value of $193,375. Now, at this point, I multiply this by, the taxes are 38 mills. I multiply this by 38 mills. 38 mills will look like 0.038. Now, my taxes for the year comes out to $7,348.25 for the year. Now, if the state asks for what the first installment, you divide that by 2. That come out to $3,674.13 for the first installment. Now, if they want the monthly taxes, then I'm going to take that $73,48.25 divided by 12, which comes out to $612.35 for the month. 35 cents for the month. Now, the difference when you see the equalization, when you see the taxes being in mills, see on the first problem, when it was so much per 100, the taxes, you multiply, divide by 100. But when you see the taxes being in mills, then what you have to do is you multiply, and multiply. And that's what you do. Now, let's go back to our textbook. Let's go on to page 56. On page, excuse me, on page 56, they talk about the forfeiture sale and scavenger sale that we talked about before. Let's go on to on page 57 now. Towards the bottom where it says mechanics lien, I want you to highlight, put an X by the last 2 paragraphs. A mechanics lien is a contractor's lien. You hire a contractor to do some work on your property, and you don't pay them, they could file a mechanics lien, which can force the sale of your property. That's what a mechanics lien is. Now, mechanics lien can only be filed on real property only, not personal property. Now, let's say you took your car into your auto mechanic to get fixed, and your mechanic fixed your car, and you did not pay him, and you took your car back. Can your mechanic file a mechanics lien against you? No. The answer is no, because a mechanics lien has nothing to do with a auto mechanic. A mechanics lien, again, is a contractor's lien. Now, let's go to page 58. It's the second paragraph from the bottom, a lien waiver. Now, if you hire someone to do some work on your property, let's say you're putting in a new kitchen. So that general contractor is going to have to bring in carpenters and plumbers and electricians. They have to buy the cabinets, buy the appliances, the tile work. And they did the job, and it's beautiful. You're very happy. He gives you a bill for the final payment. You give him the check for the final payment. But if the general contractor doesn't pay the subcontractors or the material men for the work, unless you have a lien waiver, the material men and the subcontractors could come after you and pay double and charge you again, even though you have a paid receipt that you paid in full. They could come after you. And this does happen. You never pay your general contractor in full unless you get a lien waiver signed by the material men and the subcontractors, because once you pay them in full, as long as you have that lien waiver, if the general contractor doesn't pay the workers or the material men, they can only go after the general contractor. They can't come after you. Got to have that lien waiver. Now, expiration of the lien waiver, that last paragraph. Mechanics lien has to be filed. Well, mechanics lien, and this is on a state exam for sure. Mechanics lien has to be filed within 4 months of completion of their job. Don't forget that. That's always on a state exam. In Illinois, mechanics lien, contractors lien must be filed within 4 months of completion of the job. Their lien rights expire. Their lien rights expire after 2 years, so they won't be able to come back. Now, let's go on to page 59. On page 59, the first paragraph highlight, put an X by that. A judgment is an order by the court that settles and defines the rights and obligations of parties to a lawsuit. The next paragraph, the very first line and a half, highlight, put an X by that. A judgment is a general, involuntary, equitable lien on both real and personal property. On real and personal property. Let's skip down 3 paragraphs. Lis pendens. Lis pendens is Latin for pending lawsuit, pending litigation. If you go and list a property, you got to make sure there aren't any lawsuits on there, because the new owner could be responsible for that. Attachments. Now, a attachment, let's say that someone's involved in a lawsuit. Let's say someone's suing me, and I have $10 million worth of assets. Well, I don't want to lose all my money in a lawsuit, so I take everything I have and I sell it to a friend of mine for $1,000. Okay, go ahead and sue me. All I got is $1,000. Lawsuit's over. I take my $10 million in assets. Well, if a person is involved in a lawsuit and they're trying to hide their assets, what will happen? They will wind up seizing their property. The courts will seize their property and hold on to it, and says, no, you're not going to transfer your property over to your friend. You're going to hold on to it, and you're going to deal with this lawsuit until it's settled. That's what a attachment is, when the courts would take over the property. Now, let's go over onto page 60, the very last paragraph, Commercial Real Estate Broker Lien Act. Highlight, put an X by that. Make sure you know this. Now, whenever commercial property, when there's a lease on a commercial property or a sales contract on a commercial property, the commissions are very, very high, into the not only tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands, even into the millions of dollars, even for a lease. So when you lease something, the sponsoring broker could put a commercial lien on that property, and they remove it at the closing once they get paid, because they want to make sure they get paid. Same thing on a sale of a property. They will put a lien on it, and then what they will do is remove that lien once they get paid their commission. Now, the Commercial Real Estate Broker Lien Act, the sponsoring broker could put a lien on the property of only commercial transactions, not residential. Just commercial transactions only. Now, before I end this session here, there's one last thing I want to go over with you. And this is about the taxes. So here's what you need to know. Very important. On January 1st of any given year, a lien is placed on every single property in the entire state of Illinois. on every single property. Now, property taxes are due in 2 equal installments. Property taxes are due a year after they are levied, June 1st and September 1st of the following year. So, let's say, for example, you close on a property. Closed on May 20th. '23. That's the day you close on a property. First question, when was the lien placed on this property? The answer is January 1st, 2023. You buy a property on January 1st, 2023 or December 31st, 2023. The lien was placed on January 1st, 2023. Now, when is the taxes due on this property? Well, the first installment is going to be due on June 1st, and you need to know the month, the day, the year. On this particular closing, it's going to be due June 1st, 2024, a year later. The second installment is going to be due on September 1st, 2024. So you close on this property on May 20th, 2023. In 10 days after that, on June 1st, you're going to get a tax bill. But that tax bill has nothing to do with this problem. That tax bill is from last year. Has nothing to do with this problem. Please understand these dates here. These are things that will be on the state exam. I want you to be familiar with them. Okay, and that ends chapter 5. This is Sam Zakarian. As I said, one of the instructors for the Chicago Real Estate School. Don't forget, keep doing the chapter quizzes. Keep up with them. If you get stuck or you have any questions, please always contact the school. They'll pass that on to me. Study hard, and good luck to all of you. Thank you.